So hey Ryan, thank you for being on here. What I've got is I've got an agenda that usually helps us when we get together with our clients
Okay.
because it's some of the things that we've already seen before. And I'll show you the agenda. We'll go through it, and at the end, obviously, I'll invite you to work with us. So let me go ahead and share my screen. If there's anything in the process that you have any questions about, please don't hesitate to stop me because it's after all, this is all about you. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to go ahead and hit present here. I just want to make sure that we used to do mic checks. Now we do uh, uh, Zoom checks. So you're seeing it on my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, our company is called Trusted Covenant, and it really is about having your family's stuff in order. And this is the agenda that I promised you. I'm going to talk a little bit about why you and I are here right now, and we will move over to what in the world is estate planning, what some of the notions that people have, and I'll explain a little bit further the legacy planning. We're going to talk about the different types of documents and why these are important to call them essential documents. Then we're going to go over to our technology and the process that we follow for our clients so that our client journey will be clear to you. We'll talk about some of the options and costs. And then, of course, I'm already telling you, spoiler alert, I'm going to invite you to work together if it makes sense. So that work for you?
Yep. That
Okay.
works for me.
All right. Well, and if you will allow me, this is not an easy conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And if you would allow me, I just want to tell you about the reason why I'm here. So this is Kayla. She was here at Valencia College in Orlando, and she's got a USF. Obviously, that's in Tampa, but this is our daughter. After graduating from Valencia College, Kayla took a year off of school to help me and my wife to start a financial agency. And she's very, very um, uh, giving to her family. In 2018, we started talking about legacy planning. That's how important this is to us. And in fact, she was the one that said, I'm going to concentrate on American Sign Language at USF. But while I'm doing that, I want to help you get this program, off the ground. Um, and in the summer of 2021, both her and I were hospitalized. Now we had already talked about this ahead of time, medical power of attorney, a medical healthcare directive for the purposes of quality of life, whenever something happens, if somebody is hospitalized and unable to speak, right? Well, 4 months later, God took her home in December of 2021. We still feel it every day. She was 25 years old, and she was on her last semester at USF. And the beauty of this is that we were invited a year later to go and receive her diploma on her behalf, which is, again, God's grace to us, right? I bolded this here, and God is good through it all because Kayla today doesn't have to suffer anymore. And that's the hope that we all have. We will all, have that blessed hope. So really what we started building will now live on with Trusted Covenant. And that's the reason why I'm here today. I want to show you what happened afterwards. We do press forward. We don't move on, but we do press forward. And though we may never cease to feel the loss and pain of losing our 25-year-old daughter, God's grace and his mercy has carried our family through this storm. And it is in his word that we find those promises. So as a family, our faith has grown, and we're united on a path to help other families like yours to be protected through the storms that you may face. I wish I could tell you that you won't, because we found ourselves in that situation and we weren't expecting it. But I'm hoping that, when we go through this, that you will be prepared or more prepared. Not only does God shelter us through the storms of life, but he also takes us much further than we could ever go ourselves. And so this was my oldest daughter. She was married. Kayla was the maid of honor. This boy is actually taller than me right now, and she's already a preteen. And so today, We are three members. In addition to this, they have three children, two girls and a boy. And so what we do, the connection for this is, how does trusted covenant help families? We know that there are gaps in many families' plans. Most other plans they're just concerned with the after death issues. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that people can leave a legacy, a meaningful legacy, like Kayla has. So we realize that when clients come to us, they're entrusting us with their financial assets, their life experiences and core values, and life contributions. But then that they ask us to make sure that those are preserved not only for their use right now, but for generations to come. So let me ask you, why are you here? Give me a couple of minutes and tell me what brought you here. What's your story?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of words that come to mind. Legacy is one of them. Um, Kingdom is another word that really, for me, means like stewardship. You know,
Mhm.
if you're doing kingdom business, you're using the resources around you to wisely and stewardship. You're in God's calling. So um, those three words really is why I'm here. The driving force is obviously, my family, which really is part of legacy. As being a good steward with my wife and my kids and everything is part of the legacy that
Mm,
lives on after, you know, God takes me home.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are the things, legacy, kingdom, and stewardship is
Okay.
why I'm here.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, you're putting yourself in that place where you know where your direction is. You know your destiny. So I always like to remind people that it's more the prosperity is about how much stuff you leave behind, but posterity is how long it will last. And that's part of the story. So what I like to do, um, you know, you had children, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know about you, man, but when I grew up, like, people used to say, "Hey, man, can you go to the store and get me some Pampers?" And what they meant was diapers, right? Pampers became the marketing
Yes.
word, right? Well, in estate planning, this is the actual industry term, estate planning, which is more about the stuff that people have. Um, most people think that they don't need an estate plan because they think what? For the very rich, for the one that has that mansion, that Jaguar, and the big 401k, and they don't think that they need it, right? Well, what you see here in estate planning, it's more about the giving the gifts of clarity, the gift of direction, and the gift of protection. So we're gonna discuss that. But if you'll allow me, I want to, like Pampers, legacy planning is more of a term that connects us to the individuals. It's not so much about the stuff that people have, but it's about the person. So if I could just ask you, do you remember, can you think of a grandparent or a loved one that's no longer with us? What do you think of when you think of them?
What do I think about them as far as like what do I remember?
Yeah, what
Or
do you like? How do you remember someone that's no longer here with you? Again, like a grandparent because they might not be around, or
right.
maybe just a person that you admire. What do you remember about them?
Well, I guess I can think about my dad, that passed away a few years ago. And you know, I do remember I'm more in his later years that he seemed more submissive.
Hmm.
He seemed more like he was, I think, starting to finally realize that, all the stuff that he was trying to pay attention to didn't really matter. He wasn't as quick to talk. He was a lot more submissive.
Need to listen more. And this is what you remember the most. Notice you never mention anything material. You're talking about him, the essence of the person.
Right.
Legacy planning goes beyond the material things. It focuses on the individual's actual life, who they were as a person, their attributes, their wisdom, and their virtues, and more importantly, how they want to be remembered. So that's really what legacy planning is. This is how we set that apart. And I wanted to make the distinction. And then for our purposes, when I refer to estate planning I'm talking about legacy planning. Okay. I just want to set that stage.
Got it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with me. I know it's not easy, when we think about our family members that are no longer here. So trusted covenant is different in the sense that if we don't get this part right, then everything else is just about stuff. So we talk about God's provision. And in order to have and understand God's provision, you already mentioned it earlier. You mentioned the stewardship. So you have to have a different frame of mind to acknowledge that God is the one that owns everything and that he left us here as managers. Sometimes you have to change your environment because some of the negative people that are around you, you need to separate yourself from there. And so that way you could have a changed behavior. This is why when you mentioned, being a good steward, that was important to you to set the tone for your legacy. Okay. Then from here, we go to contentment. So this little guy over here, I mean, look at that. If everybody had an attitude like him, right? Look at him jumping up and down. Remember the Toyota commercial in the 90s?
Yep.
Everybody used to jump up. Well, this is really what contentment is being intentional about our finances, being cheerful with what we have, and feel that we're provided for. So we no longer have to be comparing ourselves to other people. It's like, why does that guy have a business where he's making $1 million a year and I'm only making 100,000? Who cares? That's not what God has for you, right? That's
Right.
like that contentment leads us to what we talk about is finishing well. And you mentioned kingdom business, kingdom minded business. You mentioned legacy. This finishing well is where we leave the gift of protection so that our families won't have to be um, stuck not being provided for, but we
Right.
offer the gift of clarity so that we leave the intentions and we also give an inheritance of direction. That's if we get this part right, then where we're going, where you and I are going, the stage will be set for those who are going to be left behind. Okay, so though I wanted to make those distinctions for you, and I think this is very important. I can guarantee you, if you went to a estate planning attorney, they would not talk about this. Do you agree
Yeah.
with me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. Okay, so then this is the kind of stuff that you probably would talk to an estate planning attorney. So look at this first box here, and can you tell me if you're familiar with either one of these three here in the first box?
Healthcare directive, HIPAA off, power of attorney. Well, power of attorney, I'm not sure about the HIPAA thing, but healthcare directive, from my understanding, is like, you know, what, you know, should I resuscitate,
Mhm.
should, organs, donating, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, and really the HIPAA authorization is really just giving your healthcare agent the authorization to act in your behalf and get access to those documents. So, but we'll talk about that and
Well,
I'll show you how that works. And this middle box here, we're talking about a living will and then preserving your family's privacy. That's really important. And the reason why we say a living will is because this is while we're still alive, but then at the end, we have what's called a last will and testament. This is the one that everybody thinks of when they think about estate planning. Well, they're going to read the will and they're going to, distribute the funds and all that stuff, right?
right.
How about this box over here? Are you familiar with any of these three?
I mean, I've heard the terms, not, super clear on the execution.
Yeah.
Living trust, trust funding asset, trust funding, and then asset protection.
Hmm.
Those terms, not new to me, but
Yeah.
execution.
It's not something we talk about every day when we go to
Yeah,
Chick-fil-A for lunch, right? For
right.
sure. And then the final one here is the schedule of assets, which it's something that that we in our program would talk about. This is like kind of like an afterthought in case something was missed in one of these wills. The pour over will kind of covers all of that. And again, I'll talk a little bit more.
Okay.
This is the certificate of trust is something that comes with the living trust documents, and it just allows the individual to present this to like lending institutions, like mortgage companies, things like that. Okay, so just wanted to give you a quick overview so that
Right.
you know what we're going to be discussing, and that that way, if there's anything that's not clear, you could just ask me. Okay, now I'll give you one little twist here. For a very long time, I used to go to my car auto insurance company. It was State Farm, and I would ask them every year, like, can you go over this policy with me? Can you explain these terms? And no one, every single year that I showed up, no one ever took the time to explain why I needed to have underinsured motorist protection when I already had health insurance. Like, you see the connection there, or maybe the disconnect?
Right.
And I was like, well, why? If you could just explain to me what one does and the other one doesn't, or am I doubling on the coverage? But they can never do that. So I ended up after 20 years, I ended up changing the policy to a different company because they never had. So I don't want that to happen with you. In case there's anything here, we will just talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's move forward. So in the technology, arena, what we'll do is we'll talk about like how this impacts you. So the first thing is just to answer a few questions to figure out if a will or a trust is the most effective thing for you. And the way we do that is we're going to answer a few simple questions about your personal circumstances. We're going to do that right up front, right? And I'm going to let you know like what we're going to need. That way we can personalize this for you. And some of the things I'm gonna, people don't think they need a plan, but if do you have any children under 18?
Yeah, all of them.
Okay. Any cumulative value of any assets over 160,000?
My house? Would that be
Yes,
would that
of
be
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You own real estate. Okay. You own a business. I know that about you.
Yep.
And then maybe you wanting to add conditions to the distribution of your assets. So, for example, if you had a child that's under the age of 18, by law, by the time they become 18, whatever you leave them, they can get. But imagine if you put no restrictions and how they use that, that would probably ruin them, wouldn't it?
Right.
Okay. All right. So here's what we do. You tell us a little bit about yourself, right? You're married. You wanna uh, exclude somebody from your assets. You want to leave a gift to charity, maybe to a church, things like that. So this is step one, just to figure out where you need to go. And then this is how we create your plan. So a trust-based plan is the most common for like in your situation. So what we do is we're going to talk about the basic information. We're going to talk about guardianship appointment for your children and your pets. Believe it or
Okay.
not, there's such a thing as a pet trust.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
we'll talk about trustees, and really, a trustee is you. You are the trustee, and your wife is the secondary trustee, and then you designate other people after that in case something happens. We'll talk about some assets, some distributions, and basically how the funds are distributed. Of course, we don't want to talk about this, but we have to, the final arrangements and then any healthcare preferences. So these are the two steps. What I like to do is I like to ask the person out of these, I'm going to touch on all of them, but is there any area here that is more important to you, like the guardianship, the trustee, the assets, the distributions of final arrangements? If I could spend some time explaining that, which one of these would be most important to you?
Um, I guess guardianship.
Okay. You're we're at 100%. Almost every parent that I talk to, that's their main concern.
Yep.
So you're right there. Okay. So after we get, because most people want to know, like, well, what's going to be put into this? So obviously your full name, your date of birth, your marital status. You would never give any account numbers or any social security numbers. And the technology is bank levels, security. Okay, so then you know that this is done, for you, and no concerns about, anybody hacking the system. So you talked about the nomination of guardians. So in this section, you're going to appoint some guardians for your minor children, and if you're pets, if you decide to do so. But the guardian for your children, is you'll have the primary, right? So this is where you and your wife will talk. Hey, what's your wife's name, by the way?
Danielle.
Daniela?
No, Danielle.
Danielle. Okay. So Danielle, you would probably talk to her. Look, you and I are on a date. On our way back, we don't come home. Who's going to be the primary guardian for our children? Then you want to have a backup and then a secondary backup. Why? Because what if something happens to these people too? So you're going to have a succession plan for your family.
Right.
All right. So that's what's important. Obviously, over here, like when we ask the questions, we're going to help you, to determine how you can personalize this, because this is state specific, attorney drafted documents at a fraction of the cost. Okay. Any questions about that before I go to the next thing?
No, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we'll talk about trustees, which is basically, like I mentioned before, you're the trustees who
Oh, I
is,
do have one question.
yes, sir.
Um, I guess you probably get to this anyway. Like where does these documents live?
Yeah.
And how do people even know it's there, you know?
Listen, I'm gonna note that. So where do the documents live? I'm writing this down because I want
Yep.
to address, and that's a really good question. So we'll talk
Yeah,
about
and then like how do people even know that
it.
they exist somewhere?
That's and when I get to the slide, I'm gonna focus on that. But I want you to acknowledge that I want you to know that I acknowledge that
Yeah.
you're asking that question. Um, so anyway, so these are the trustees and the backup trustees. So you get what a trustee is and how it works, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me go to here. Now here, believe it or not, I had somebody say, I don't need a legacy plan because all I have is a real estate. But do you know that the majority of people's biggest asset is a home, right?
Yeah.
So in the assets, there's so many different asset types. So we'll talk about real estate, financial accounts, life insurance, business interests, right? All
Right.
of these things, and then we go through personal property like that 1979, Camaro, the family heirlooms, the jewelry, furniture, artwork, all of those things. And then basically the person designates who it goes to or what percentage of it goes to them,
Yep.
right? And then here we have the distribution. So this is a little bit more in line with if you've ever heard of what a trust fund baby is.
Yep.
This is how you do it. You have the parameters on your distributions, so you have a choice to apply conditions to those distributions, giving you control over the funds and how they're used and when they're given. So, like, say for example, at a minimum age, assets held in a trust until beneficiary reaches the age of 18 or older, then it's held in a trust. Net income is distributed quarterly, and principal distribution may be made for health, education, and maintenance and support. So that kind of stuff is what we're going to go through when we go through, and ask your particular situation.
Okay.
Almost done with the client journey. Um, in this section here, I know that for me, choosing whether you want to be cremated, donate your body to science, how you want this done is really important. So for me, I'm already planning, the hymns and the songs that will be played. I want to have a celebration of life. I don't want to have a funeral. I don't want to have a funeral service. To me, that is like counter to my mind the way that
Right.
we should celebrate the way that God has put us on this earth, right? If you
Yeah.
if we do everything right for kingdom, living a legacy and we're good stewards, we shouldn't have to worry about, mourning and all that stuff. And of course, everybody goes through their pain differently, but
Right.
really want to emphasize that that is something that I want to guide how that's gonna end up. Okay.
Yes.
And then you have healthcare wishes. So in this section, you're going to designate a healthcare agent. Usually it's your wife first, and then maybe the people who became your guardians for your children, or maybe the trustees. Some of those people are going to be, going through that. So once you have the healthcare wishes, this is that the HIPAA form that we talked about in the healthcare directive. So
Yeah.
this kind of completes all of the stuff about, the estate plan. So before I go to the options, because we're not, doing a full like, intake of your information, do you get a pretty good feel for what legacy planning is and what it does for you and your family?
Yep, I do.
Okay. So here's where it kind of, we talk a little bit about, so what are some of the options that you have? Obviously, if you did nothing, you're gonna submit your family to victimization by creditors and predators. There's obviously family conflicts and feuds. There's something that's called the inheritance theft, and depending on the size of your estate or the size of your assets, sometimes people have lost tens to hundreds of thousands of court fees with judges and attorneys and third party settlers. Obviously, there's a lot that you would lose if you do nothing, right? You could also be your own advocate. So this option may work for like a seasoned professional, like maybe a CPA, financial advisor, mortgage professional. They just needed a place to do their stuff, or maybe even the do-it-yourselfer, right? We simply just we're very transparent. We plug you into our platform and then give you some tools about how you can do it. That would not be me. I mean, that would, I would not want to be my own advocate, but some people feel like they could do this on their own. And so that's an option. This is probably the option that most people think about when they think about estate planning. And that's, a traditional attorney's office. They go to their office. It's traditional estate planning. They're talking about dividing the stuff, dumping the stuff, getting rid of the through estate sale. And it's really about all the stuff. It's about the material stuff,
Right.
right? Well, trusted covenant, and I want you to notice is it's trusted covenant and you, because I can't personalize anything if without you kind of deciding which are the things that you need to do. So trusted covenant is a virtual done with you technology platform, and our focus is for you to document and tell your story, to let family members know, and then there's a way that we do this. Families will appreciate any inheritance that you leave them, but they will cherish more the memories and the lessons and the stories that you leave them with. So when you look at this, like if you had to pick one of these that you want to work with to get this done for you, which one would you say makes more sense?
Number four, trusted covenant.
All right. I'm glad you think that way. Thank you. And then let's talk about costs. Okay. Let's be very, very open about this because I think that, people need to understand that the cost of this is a lot more than money. So people will face opportunity cost and a loss of privacy because everything becomes open to public records.
Right.
You have loss of control and of valuables. Somewhere between 4 to 10% of the estate goes to fees and courts and things like that. And we didn't really talk about this, but probate is really the legal process to determine that the will that you have is good, but obviously it can be fortified with a trust because a trust it makes the probate process. You don't need to go through the probate process. So I wanted to make sure that you got that part. Um, and what's funny is that people are fighting over assets. I mean, that's just sad. The whole thing is very costly and a time waster. And what I have seen people do is go to the state's unclaimed property and trying to find their stuff through there. That's pretty awful, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of keeping it the same way, you could be your own advocate. The thing with that is you could have some potential inaccuracies because, if you don't know exactly where you're going with this, but it's going to take you some extra time to self-educate. I told you before that we started this in 2018 and we've gone through so many different parameters to give the clients the best experience. Here's the other one. The lack of accountability to get things completed. Our fulfillment team will make sure that you are able to do all the steps that are needed. And we don't want you to say, well, I don't have time. So we start with 15, 20 minutes, and then we go through little by little until it gets completed. If you're doing this yourself, I don't know who you would lean on, right?
Mhm.
Limited access to support. You are your own back office. And then, personally articulating and organizing your plan to your family without a team, that's very difficult to do. But I want to make sure that I'm transparent. If anybody went to my platform, like if they woke up this morning and they said, I need to do an estate plan, like nobody does that in their head, right? And then they found the platform access is 195 for a will, and a trust package is 500. Very simple. You do it on your own. It's all there. We just give you access to the platform. Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand the opportunity cost that I lost, and over here being your advocate. Let's go to the third one. This is a traditional attorney's office. Now, did you ever go to New York or Chicago?
Not recently, but I have, yeah.
Do you remember back in the 80s and 90s they used to have these yellow taxis, and the moment that you
Yep,
got in
yep,
there,
yep.
what was going on? What was the meter?
Yeah, the meter, yep.
That's what I want you to think of when you think about a traditional attorney's office. They
Right,
get paid by the hour, right?
right.
So then you spend your time traveling to and from the attorney's office. It's more transactional, not relational, with no regard to your family. You and I spent a few minutes earlier talking about why you're here and why I'm here. And you explained to me that, being kingdom minded, that legacy is important to you, and being a good steward. They will never ask you that because that's not important to them. A typical attorney's fees, they're 5 to 7,000 and up. I've seen as much as 30,000, especially when there was something that wasn't done ahead of time. Okay, so now you see the differences between doing nothing, being your own advocate, and going to a traditional attorney's office. And then, of course, the partnership, the trusted covenant in you. Our support team will guide you in a seamless process to help choose the best program. The power of attorney and healthcare directive are waived as part of our plans. And you do this from the comfort of your home. And we're going to guide you through a couple of different processes. Our package for the will is 497, and the trust package is 997. And this is our offer to you guys in the community. We wanted to make sure that money wasn't an issue, time wasn't an issue, and that you had someone in a fulfillment role that would help you to complete all of this. Okay, so based on that, you got some of the costs. So tell me how you feel about what you see in front of you, and does this resonate with you?
Yeah, one is the way you have everything laid out is very methodical. That makes sense for even somebody that may not even be familiar with the word will.
Mhm.
So it feels good the way that you have, when you have confidence in the structure of what you're teaching, then it gives confidence to the client that you know how to fulfill on it.
Mhm.
So um, so yeah, the structure of the presentation feels strong to me as far as um, learning about the team that would actually be fulfilling on this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we don't take it lightly. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure that we don't confuse people, and that we're able to give them an opportunity to really take on something that's really important to them. So any questions on it before I go to the next thing?
No, I think those are those are pretty clear as far as the different pathways. Yeah. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, then, usually what I ask people is this: let's not make the checkout process awkward or weird. Whatever you decide is totally good with us. I want to make sure that you feel that you have an advocate working with you, not against you. So we would never, even though we believe strongly in our process, in our company, and our fulfillment team, we also don't want you to feel like if you didn't have any value in this, that you would be like, oh, I want to think about it. I want to pray about it. I want to do this,
Right.
and all the different reasons that people give. It's a simple yes or no. Whatever you
Right.
decide is fine. Okay.
Yep.
So,
I like
um,
that.
but I wanted to make sure that we don't leave without really giving you the real, like, this is the reason why Trusted Covenant is such a differentiator in the marketplace. So our gifts to all of our clients, whether they just get logged onto the platform, they do it themselves, or they decide to use our fulfillment team, we're going to give them an ability to start telling their story, because I think this is really important. So it's an electronic PDF that will guide you and inspire you to start documenting your story right now, not next year, now.
Right.
And it doesn't stop there. You can use that with your parents, grandparents, or any other loved ones. And this is our gift to you for trusting us with your family and telling your story. Okay, so that's gift number one. Some people call it bonus. I don't think it's a bonus. I think it's really our gift to you. Um, and then the journal, to journal your experience. I this one doesn't have Trusted Covenant in it, but this is what it shows when you get it. It'll have our emblem on it. Trusted Covenant swag will help you keep you organized. This is our gift to you for trusting us with documenting your legacy and leaving a bright light for your family. Okay. Now, I promised you that I would get to this part. You asked, where do the documents live? What's different about Trusted Covenant is we facilitate a family meeting. In the family meeting, we say that clarity and direction are the two most important factors when your legacy planning documents are completed. Why? Because everybody that you name in those documents is going to understand their role. And because of the technology that we have, you will give them access to the documents that you want. Some people should have the full documents. Some of them only need to have the healthcare directive or the financial power of attorney, but you decide which documents you leave them with. That's one. The second thing is you're going to have a notarized version of your documents. This is really important that you get it notarized, witnessed, and signed. And that's the one that you're going to upload to your client portal. And I would make a suggestion that you also leave it. This is our secret sauce. You leave it on one of your files that you can access on your phone at any moment. You give it to your spouse, you give it to your guardian, you give it to your trusted advisor. It should we be your trusted advisor? We could have access to us too. And your family calls us, we get the ball rolling when you're in a hospital and you can't talk, or if you were to pass away, right? Um, Including your loved ones in the conversation is going to ensure that no questions are left unanswered and you are having a difficult conversation before anything happens. So, really, what it is like having a GPS for your posterity, right? So, now I answered the question about where the documents live and where they go. And there's so many different formats, electronically, physically, and then you put it in a safe, a fireproof safe, floodproof safe. Especially you in Florida, you need to have floodproof too, right?
Right. Mhm.
Right. So really, it's a turn by turn. You wouldn't go on a road trip without using your GPS or a map. My team and I will help you to create your GPS route for your prosperity and your posterity. And then what we want to do is invite you. I did promise you that I would ask you to invite you to work with us. So don't delay and leave anything to chance. So are you ready to get started?